Hey everybody, welcome to TLDM Podcast, a podcast where two DMs who share a world and also play in each other's games talk about what that feels like from both sides of the screen. I am Alan.
And I am Tyler.
And we are those two people I was just talking about.
It's totally true. And we're no slouches when it comes to beatboxing.
That's true. We're not going to talk about that. We're going to move on. But we did just finish playing Tyler's game.
Yep.
And we're actually at a strange parallel crossroads right now, which makes no sense because crossroads cannot be parallel.
I mean, that's why they're strange, though.
Strange.
It's strange because they're parallel crossroads.
They're strange dimensional parallel crossroads, wherein both of our games have hit their first major multi-session dungeon crawl.
Yeah. I think for similar reasons. It just felt like a fun change of pace.
Yes, and we are both. So we'll do like quick similarities and differences.
Yeah.
Similarities, they're both underneath a town.
Yes, very much so.
They both contain bug-like monstrosities of different types and kinds.
Yours had chuls, mine had carrion crawlers.
They both have, I'm going to call them liquid themes.
Yes. Yours is in a well, mine is in a sewer.
Yes. As for differences, Tyler's is fucking gross. It's just a scatological nightmare realm of gross, smelly badness.
I mean, you guys you're in a sewer.
It's really bad. There's just poo. Everything
poop
is bad. There's gross, garbagey, grossness. We're just covered in
filth.
Feces.
Yeah.
I'm having a really good time.
It's
I'm having a good
fun.
time. Mine is like a drippy, cavernous thing, and there's like a flooded chamber with the ruins of an old town in it.
Yeah, trapped under a layer, like a ceiling of crystallized evaporate.
Yeah,
almost. It's very cool. It's like very instead of covered with ice, it's just covered with like the hard water sediment.
Yeah. So mine's kind of like a deep dive archaeological sort of dealy, and Tyler's is like we got flushed down a toilet.
Yeah, you chose to get flushed down a toilet and are encountering just horrific things.
It's really gross. Was it a gibbering mouther?
Yeah, it was.
Okay. Because it was, I mean, I recognized it from, I mean, my character, I had no idea what the fuck was going on. But I recognized it from its like abilities.
Right.
But I had no idea. Like you just made it sound and seem so disgusting.
Yeah, I was pretty excited about it. So the thing for me was, I realized I said like we both just did dungeon crawls because it like feels like fun. I actually realized mine has an ulterior motive, which is I actually am using it to tie a bunch of different disparate storylines together to kind of as almost a palate cleanser to like reset us a little bit so that we can resolve a bunch of different things and then open up new pathways.
You also have to do the DM task of folding in a new character or two.
I do. Yeah, we're adding our friend Tim Dunn, who for the time being is playing a rat person named Sneevis. Who was they encountered as he was the target of the said gibbering mouther, and eventually they finally decided to help him, in part, I think, in large part, because they rightfully identified that he's the only one who knows where anything is in the sewer.
Mm-hmm.
So he's sort of a guide and new friend. But yeah, so since you guys are looking for this like magical something that exists beneath the sewers, it gave me a chance to then be like, cool, that's enough of a justification that I can populate this sewer with all of the weird creatures that otherwise require a full dungeon to exist around as just being things that this weird magic is sort of like allowing to sort of pass through. And Gibbering Mouther is at the top of my list. I've always wanted to run one, but it's always been like really specific because it's like either too much or too little for a group. But as an introduction to a place, it was perfect and was very fun to play.
Yeah, it was grotesque and horrible. That's all I mean,
a lot of mouths.
A lot of mouths.
A lot of
voices. They were all just talking all at once, and it was bad. And it was like doughy and gross. I just never really... I mean, I pictured them as like, slippery, mouth-covered things, but the depths of the description were...
It was really... I enjoyed the idea of like, it being doughy is interesting, but I like it more of it being stringy. And like muscular.
Disgusting.
It's nasty. So we did that. And then you guys then kind of continued. Really, the game at this point has really like solidified into I create stuff, but like I've created a whole dungeon. I really don't even need to bother because I don't need to bother with anything like random encounter rolls. Like, are they going to encounter something? Because you guys do more than good job of drawing things to you through your willful self-involvement.
You can say stupidity.
Yeah, willful. So, but it's not even stupidity. It's more of just like you have a drug addict, Eon, and then you guys you and Mark McGrath have little to no empathy, or sense. Like you guys just find it fun to kind of egg on the drug addict. So there's a lot of screaming involved, a lot of shouting, a lot of inadvertently like getting minorly hurt and like releasing blood into the air stream of this sewer. So the majority of the encounters that you guys had today weren't ones that I had planned, but were just sort of like, well, something has to react to this. You guys encountered a giant sewer pig because you wanted to.
Yeah. I wanted to tame it, to be clear, and then Eon blasted its head into 1,000 pieces.
Yeah, because you guys told her, the drug addict, that it had drugs in its belly.
And it did.
I mean, I'm not going to say no to that.
That's fair.
Yeah, like, that's always fun to me. It's like, if you make up something dumb, I want to find some way to, like, pay it off at least a little bit. That's the magic of storytelling.
It is. It was cool.
Yeah, and then you guys, we ended up with you finding like a secret entranceway as you were making your way to the ratacombs, the rat catacombs, where the rat people live. You found a secret entranceway that led to a demonic sacrificial room.
And Eon had her first in this room, which was covered in dead bodies and runes written in blood in what I assume is abyssal. Mm-hmm. Eon had her first like moral calling in a couple of weeks.
Yeah. Both in and out game.
Yeah, and she basically convinced us that this is something we have to look into, even though it doesn't really line up with our current motivation to become the criminal kingpins of Foston.
It does not.
So we're gonna do it. I think. Yeah. She was very convincing. So we're gonna do it. But we do have a primary motivating factor here, which is to find the rumored magical means of removing these cursed bracelets that have been on Mark McGrath and Eon's wrists since more or less game one.
Yeah, for a long time.
Yeah, so we're trying to get these suckers off.
Right.
And
you have them on too. They just don't do anything to you.
Is mine on me? I thought I just had it.
No, yours was on, but they turned off the illusions.
Right. So I'm wearing one also. I'd love to take it off.
Yeah, it's probably...
It clashes with my new hat.
Yeah, you got a new top hat and cargo pants.
That's right. And a shawl.
And a shawl, yeah.
All of which I took off of dead people that I found in this.
Yeah, all off of one dead person.
That's right.
Yeah, who I had given Tim the option of... Because Tim has a character that he and I have talked about that we will introduce probably in a couple of sessions. But it wasn't right to introduce yet because I just have like a stupid idea of a way that I want to introduce him that's a secret. So I told him he could either play a smuggler or play a were-rat with kind of like nerfed traits to make him a little more equivalent to everybody. And he chose were-rat. Had he played a smuggler, you guys would have found a lot more about Gentleman Boner, the con man who was dead in the safe room.
Gentleman Boner.
Yeah.
I mean, I still kind of want to know what his deal is.
Oh, he's a con man who takes in nobles' wives and was on the run from the wrong husband. So he went down to hide it out in the safe house.
Stumbled upon a mimic.
Got his body ripped apart.
Yeah.
But his hat stayed but that's why he's dressed in like the finery of like a 1920s magician.
I love it. And now I'm dressed like a 1920s magician.
Yeah.
I'm just really enjoying so far in this dungeon crawl role playing and like kind of leaning into being a dummy.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, it's just fun. Like I just bought, to sort of kind of change gears for a second here. I didn't even buy it. A gift was given to me in the form of Tales of the Yawning Portal. Tales from the Yawning Portal, excuse me. And it is great. Yeah. And in it, of course, is the infamous Tomb of Horrors.
Yes.
Which I'm dying to... I can't decide if I'm dying to run it or if I'm dying to play through it. So I haven't actually read it yet because I'm not sure which one I'm going to do yet.
I would rather run it than play it.
I think I would rather play it than run it.
Because from what I've read of it, I think it is everything I would find frustrating about playing in a dungeon.
Yeah, we sort of talked about this last episode of trap design and stuff like that.
Yeah, I like ecology. Yeah. And like, I don't know, a sense of like rationality behind building constraints. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think I'd like to run it because I think there's a difference between this sort of the kind of dungeon we're in right now where I'm like, yeah, well, as a person, it's not the point isn't that it's supposed to be a challenge to me as a person, right? So I'm not supposed to be like, well, this door might be trapped, so I'm gonna like put my ear to it, and then I'll try like opening it like at a crouch or like whatever,
right?
Or tapping it with a 10-foot pole or whatever. Those are all things I would think to do if I was in a dungeon,
right?
Because I have 1 hit point and I would instantly die. But I know that like in character, first of all, Soka's he's stupid. And then secondly, it would never occur to him to be like, well, this might be dangerous. Like he's just like, oh, we're going down this hallway. Let's just go down the hallway.
Yeah, he doesn't believe in danger.
So I think I'd like to play Tomb of Horrors to activate that other side of my brain.
Yeah.
Like, which I think would be equally fun, but I guess I won't know until I try it.
I will say Sok did learn after the first door that you guys opened.
He's not like...
Yeah, so he is starting to get a little bit more savvy.
He's not... I mean, yeah, if something happens that has consequences, he's not so dumb that he won't be like, well, glad that's never ever going to happen again. But he'll walk face first into the first one every time.
Yeah, I just think it's entertaining to watch him, by nature, watching a character learn and evolve, because it's like, well, I did encounter that crossbow trapped door that one time, so I'll be a little cautious about doors from now on. It's like a fun, like, well, that's a new element to Sok that never existed before.
Yeah, and now he's opening doors like without being in front of them.
Yeah.
So he's like SWAT opening doors.
Yeah, so you guys are like, it's entertaining to watch the group slowly becoming a dungeon crawling adventuring party.
Yep.
In real time, both as players and characters, in terms of like
not screaming at each other to alert everything that we're here.
Yeah.
And then you guys have been traipsing around there were a lot of near deaths in your group's situation, and mostly for the same reason, actually, for in character like
being
goofs.
Screw offs. Yeah, there were a lot of near deaths. There was who got paralyzed. Somebody got paralyzed.
James as Grundor, so I'm calling the Stone Speaker. He paralyzed himself.
That's right. He drank
an unlabeled blue potion that he actually has been carrying around for quite some time.
Yeah. And
through sheer Russian roulette style luck, the other 3 potions that he found that were unlabeled were all extremely beneficial.
Yeah.
So he was like, great, though they're all good potions, and this one was not.
Yeah.
So he ended up paralyzed for 5 minutes, and the group left him
floating.
So he had to catch up.
Right. And we left him floating in a pool tied to a stalagmite, so he wouldn't fall off the edge of like
a waterfall.
A waterfall that goes into a seemingly never-ending pit.
Right. And the party was like, well, he'll wake up and catch up. And he tried, and he did. But along the way, he almost got cave-fissured into the pit. He was 1 failed dex save away from just getting swallowed up in a never-ending hole. And then your character, Les's foresight in terms of roping and another couple of lucky dice rolls prevented Shava Moonbrook. Shava from breaking off of a loose rock and falling into the pit as well.
Yeah, and people gave me a lot of side eye for being like, let's tie each other. Let's
tie ropes
to each other.
Yep.
But Les has been in a mountain before.
That's true. This is like what he does.
Yeah.
We need one of him. He's your Sneevis.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Sneevis the Rat Man is the only dungeon savvy person we have.
Played by the brand new player,
Tim.
Which is great.
Yeah, which is great.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm new and also way smarter than all of you.
Yeah. And just more genre savvy.
Yes.
Yeah.
The other thing, so in terms of traps then, so we ran into crossbow traps that were set intentionally by smugglers who use the sewer. Whereas you guys ran into more like environmental style traps.
The coolest of which being, so again, we're on this like sedimentary layer that is grown like a hardened film over a flooded city. The waters of that city being held in by the city walls itself, all of this being underground. So we went down around and we came to the walls of the city, and one of the wall is a big iron door that is bulging out from which water is trickling out. And it was kind of clear if we open this, all of the water will come out and we can go in, because only one of us had water breathing. Grundor, which is why we felt comfortable just tying him to a stalagmite in a pool of water, because it was like, doesn't matter which side it's up.
It was also very lucky because a lot of the creatures I designed the encounters to like kind of take advantage of this chest or hip high water environment, and all of the monsters that would try to like hit things or like grab things and like take them underwater to drown them or eat them just kept grabbing Grundor, and he could just breathe under there and was fine the whole time. Yeah, it was again, these dice rolls,
they're no joke.
And we've had that in our campaign too, with Mark rolling nonstop 20s.
He rolled
for
real high
2
today.
weeks.
Yeah.
Mr. 20s. Also funny because a brief side thing with the sharing campaign is I removed encounters as you guys went, because you guys kept provoking encounters. So there was like other things that were going to happen that was like, never mind, this room is, there's no threat in this room. It's just a normal room. Because it came out to meet us already?
Because like, I'm not interested in just like slaughterhouse grinding you guys through a series of monsters, but you guys appear to be. So we'll do it enough. Like that, the girl on that sacrificial altar, she was supposed to be a zombie, but I was like, I don't care. That won't be fun at this point.
And the first thing we did when we got in the room was start pulling stuff out of her, so she wouldn't have lasted very long anyway.
Well, that's not quite how zombies work, but...
Is it not? I thought if you took out enough of their insides,
I think they would probably fight you doing that.
I think we could have overpowered one zombie.
Yeah, probably. It was
we Bronco rode a pig.
You did, which was pretty impressive. And it was in large part because I casually threw out that you had grappled it without really thinking through the consequences of being grappled.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I should have said you mounted it, but I said you grappled it. And then it was like, cool, yeah, you grappled it. You guys are like holding this pig
in place
somehow with your knees. Anyway, though, so
iron
door, we then we had to. It was, I feel like, a classic Alan trap or a classic Alan setup of. I'm guessing you probably hadn't thought of a solution, and then just instead built one.
The way I sort of design traps is I'm like, cool, is there a solution for this? And then I like think of one, and then I'm like, great, as long as it's solvable. But I don't ever limit myself to this is the only way.
Right. Yeah. Did we solve it the way that you thought you would have solved it?
Yeah, more or less.
Yeah. We had we crossed. There was like a ravine that was crossing the pathway to this. So we crossed the ravine and then had Shava Eldritch Blast the door open, and then all the water went into the ravine. And we were able to steer clear of it. Originally, we were going to tie Grundor to the door, and with his water breathing ring on, just open the door and then just hold on for dear life until we looked closer at the door and realized it would probably rip off.
Yeah, it would have been a bad time.
Yeah, it would have been pretty entertaining.
It would have been a fun time, but for him, it would have been a bad time.
Yeah, it would have been hard to figure out how to save him if he's going over the edge. of a ravine into like a, again, seemingly never-ending pit.
I mean, likely what would have happened was he would have just gone down there and you guys would have been like, oh, shit.
Yeah.
And then I would, I guess, figure out if he survived and then run a separate thing with him to see if he could find his way back to you guys or out of the caves.
Yeah.
Is what my back pocket plan was for that situation.
Right. Which is funny because me as a player, not necessarily as a character, but as a player, my immediate instinct is like, well, let's jump in after him. Mainly because it's like, don't split the party. We go where he goes. We'll figure it out. Or it would have been like, let's climb down or something.
And like find him?
Yeah, try to. But then I would have been like, no, let's move on.
He did finally use wild shape for like the first time.
Yeah, he only does it when he's in water.
Yeah.
And he only ever becomes an octopus.
I don't even know what else he can be.
I don't think he does either. He just chooses to be an octopus every time to great effect.
It's working. So
then we went into this waterlogged city that was now drained and walked into like a jewelry shop and encountered the like anti-shoplifting deterrents.
Which is just a loud voice that asks you to please not steal.
Please do not steal.
Yeah.
Was the voice.
My traps run one of two ways. They're like open-ended, sort of like environmental traps, or they're like real goofy, dumb ones that are mostly supposed to be like, oh, maybe we should be cautious when we do X. But they don't really do anything. Like this one deafened you if you were the one opening the door.
Right.
But then other than that, didn't really do anything. But it also served as a warning system.
It worked really
for
well.
Later on, which was pretty lucky.
Yeah. And I think that's more or less where we stopped, right?
Yeah, you guys ended up uncovering a secret underground fighting ring in this place because the old empire of Bula used to be like encroach up this far, and this was a Bulan town that had become encased under a rock slide over thousands of years, kind of like ended up like this. But it's a warrior culture that I actually based on the Zulu empire. Yeah. So they have like, they would at the time they wouldn't have even been illegal, but they just every building basically has like its own
fighting ring.
Sponsored fighting ring.
That's cool.
And the party snuck down into that ring and took a nap. And that's pretty much where we left off.
Yeah, midway through.
Yeah.
And we encountered something.
You met a ghost.
We did meet a ghost. We were very polite to it. And
I was like, wow, they're not instantly. I mean, I feel like in your campaign, we would just fuck that up instantly.
Oh, yeah. But I was like, Les was the one that met it. Mm-hmm. And I feel like Les knows. That was the thing of like, again, Les being the genre savvy one. Of like something also Les is sort of a religious person who believes in helping things and stuff like that. So I felt like Les would be like, if you're not attacking me, I'm not going to attack you. Like, I don't assume things are evil. I just like, I judge actions, not nature.
I mean, that's beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. Vareth would have
punched it.
Soak
would have panicked.
Yeah.
I don't know what he would have done.
Yeah. But Les is a talker.
Yeah.
You rolled your eyes like, ugh.
Les.
Which I love.
I love playing to be called Les.
Yep, it's Les. I love playing talkers.
Yeah.
It's way more fun for me.
I do too. I like playing talkers, and I'm discovering that I like playing talkers who aren't good at talking either.
Yes.
That's super fun.
Yeah.
Because Soak is like, Soak is like he's like a shitty, like con man.
Yeah. I think it would be interesting. This is a total sidebar, but I think it would be interesting when playing characters after, like, say, 2 levels to go back and redo your stats to reflect your character as it actually is.
Mm-hmm.
So that instead of because I think it would be there are some people where I think it would be like where Soak's charisma would go like way down.
Yeah.
And
I think he's got like
his intelligence would also go way down. Also,
he's got int is his lowest stat, and he is
but it's like an 8, right?
Stupid dummy. Yeah.
So he's now is like
I think he'd be more like a 6.
I think he'd be a 6 also. And like, but his dex would be as high as it currently is.
Yeah.
And probably his con would be probably about where it is.
Yeah.
Everything else would be the same. It's just his 2 mental traits
would probably go down.
I think his
whiz would probably go up.
Yeah.
because he's
just a feral.
He's perceptive, but like he has no idea how to like process what he's like seeing.
Yeah, he's just taking it all in. Yeah, I did one of those online quizzes that tells you what your stats are.
Oh, nice.
Like does like 140 questions.
Oh my God, that's way too many.
Yeah.
That's more than like a Myers-Briggs personality test.
It was. It's weird.
What were your stats?
They were pretty good. I had like mostly 10s.
Yeah, that's pretty normal.
A fairly high intelligence.
All right.
Which I was fine with. It told me I'd be a wizard.
Cool.
True neutral.
Yes.
And level 5.
Well, now.
Not too bad. And I was like,
so this is post-stat increase.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm not as smart as I want to be. I did think it would be fun to do a campaign with everybody taking that test and then
building characters
around it.
That'd be fun.
Yeah, I feel like you'd get not a lot of like physical. You probably wouldn't get a lot of fighters.
Yeah,
because of the nature of who plays.
Right.
Let's talk about NPC creation.
Okay.
Do you like it?
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Great. Let's talk about.
Don't like it that much.
You don't like NPC creation?
I especially find it frustrating creating NPCs when you're making challenge stuff. I was thinking about this while making this dungeon for what's going on. Because, spoiler alert, I've got 2 separate dungeons made for you guys. I have the sewer level dungeon and then the other dungeon.
Ratacombs?
They're under the Ratacombs. This is all just a prelude to the actual dungeon.
Oh my goodness.
The actual dungeon is a heavily modified Lost Mines of Phandelver, the Wave Echo Cave. Like a very modified.
The Wave Echo is a cool dungeon.
It is. I found like an alternate map online that I liked a lot better, and then ended up so stupidly just rewriting the entire chapter guide like for it last night. So I just have my own modified version of it that has a completely separate storyline and everything, but it just basically follows roughly the same stuff with completely different things. But so for it, I had to make some NPCs, and making humanoid NPCs I find very taxing.
Oh, I really?
Because especially if it's magic users.
That is a pain.
Because it's like it's hard to figure out what a level like a CR2 warlock is.
Yeah, that is hard.
Yeah, like modifying, because the NPCs in the books are great, but the magic users are either really low or really high, and there's no template given on. I mean, there is. It's in the DMG, but it's like for me difficult to follow to quickly scale an NPC up a couple levels or down a couple levels.
Yeah.
Other than just like increasing their hit points.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got nothing.
Yeah. No, I'm just.
It's hard. It's a pain. And it's hard a lot of times too, because what I tend to do when I create caster NPCs is that I start with a template of like, what is it? It's like, this is like a troll who casts spells, right? Or whatever. It's a bullywug shaman or something.
Very cool.
And then I'm like, cool. So I'm going to give it spell casting. Here's like the spells it can do. So I start with like the CR2 bullywug or whatever. And then I just put some spell casting onto it to ratchet it up. But it's really hard because I think what makes it so difficult is that spell casting, especially depending on the spells, can make these monsters a lot more powerful.
Right.
But only if they get to consistently cast spells.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like if I allow it to cast like Fireball and Cone of Cold, yeah, it can TPK like a level 5 party, no problem. Unless it rolls shit initiative and then is killed before it can even, because its stats
HP.
Are stupid. You know what I mean? So it's really hard to balance CR around that.
Yeah.
In which case, I sometimes just make a glass cannon
bad guys,
like bad guys who can really dish out the pain, but if they can't take it on the chin,
right? Which is where like minions come in.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, and it's also just like
your man the pyromancer.
My man the pyromancer. The problem is for him, I made him. That's the other thing is that like. So the pyromancer, I made him, and I was like, he shoots fire. That's what he does. He's a pyromancer. And then I was like, but like that's pretty like someone who has magic would have strategies is like a thing about magic because he also wasn't a dummy. And then So using the spell slots that were available to him and statting him up according to like just basic spells, like theory, I ended up doing it in a way that was like, oh yeah, there's no way they can take this guy down because he had gaseous form. And so it was like, without, like, he can get away every time.
Anytime, yeah.
And he's somebody who's willing to get away every time. So he's like, he just becomes a smoke cloud and disappears.
Did I tell you that I picture that guy as the old pervert from Family Guy?
That's about what I picture him
as. Is that real?
But with like a long beard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey there, boy.
Yeah,
like whatever that.
I can't wait to meet you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. What a creep.
He is a creep. He's the worst. I can't wait to kill that guy. It's going to be so much fun. We did kill
Otak
Mower.
Yeah.
Did we talk about that?
No, we didn't.
I got to kill the first person on my death list.
Yeah, last week was nuts. Suffice it to say, you got your first kill.
I did on my death list. It felt real good. And, we rolled him. We put him in a barrel of poop. And you have so much poop in your campaign.
You know what? I believe I had a little bit of poop, and then you guys chased the poop.
No, don't do that.
You went into a sewer.
We've had 4 straight weeks of poop.
No.
Yes, between the tannery.
That's just historically accurate.
The barrel of poopy
That's how
poop.
they get the poop to the tannery.
And now we're in the dungeon,
which
is
3 weeks.
Full of poop.
Yeah.
The tannery was a 2-week situation.
The tannery was yeah, you're right. You know what? All historically accurate. You're lucky that I'm not making the streets filled with poop like they would have been in the old days.
Because then why would they have a sewer?
Right, exactly.
I'm just saying, I don't know. I feel like this is like some kind of fantasy thing we're living out for you.
Oh, man. Yeah, the fantasy is trying to be... It's funny because what it is me trying to do a better job of a thing that I always feel weak at, which is like describing environment.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, I made the decision to be better at it in the same week that you guys went into a sewer. And so
it's been real gross down
there. There's a lot of throwing up.
Yeah. In game.
Yeah.
Not
as players.
We haven't yet had anyone throw up out of game.
No. Erin looked like she was going to get close to it.
Yeah.
But that's
I don't blame her.
She little Jackie Hornered a piece of poop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, I think there's poop stuff going on.
You know what? I stand by. That's funny. It's funny imagery. You look for a secret trap door.
You find a turd.
And you roll a nat 1 on it. You're going to come up with a turd in your hand.
I guess so.
Yeah. But yeah, so with NPC stuff, what
about like, just people? Not even necessarily like enemies or potential. Like things where you would need a stat block. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What about just designing like humanoids?
I am fine with that. I always feel like that I always feel like a need to have random elements available to me for it, because I always have a concern that I will create people who fit a very small margin of like the realm of possibility of people. Mm-hmm. That it will always be someone who thinks like me or someone who has the same motivations as like that makes sense to me. And that feels less exciting to me as a DM, because it feels like less of a real world, because everybody feels a little bit more similar to each other.
Right.
So like I like trying to find ways to break myself out of like my cultural norms and like create characters that are very much that think very differently than I do, to try to flesh out the world to allow players to also do that. So sort of like creating like the Hoblands culture and making like that is fun, because then it enabled Soaking Paw to be the raging sociopath that he is, in a way that is completely understandable in world and has cause and effect. And so similarly, trying to make NPCs who aren't all purely ciphers for the DM or like guideposts for the players feels important. And then I get lost in that sometimes, where I'm like, man, like I have 40,000 people in Foston, and I need to come up with 5 who are just going about their daily life, but somehow like passed by these people. So I have a tendency to like really overthink my NPCs. And then I always just end up going like, hello. and just like dropping it out the window and just being like, how's it going?
So how much of your character stuff is improvised then?
If it is someone that you guys just meet on the street,
it's probably just a made-up person.
100% improvise all the time. The main thing I love to do is to trick the players into filling out the details of an NPC for me.
Interesting.
Whether it's like, you see this guy, he has like a really unusual, there's something unusual about him, which obviously is, and then just like letting them fill it in. Because then that does some of that randomization that then makes it easier for me to improvise off of.
Gotcha.
Because if you're like, he has a long scar, I'm like, yes, he has a long scar because he was a fisherman and he got caught in a storm and a piece of wood cut his face or something.
Wow, that was quick.
Yeah, right?
You weren't sitting on that one?
No, I wasn't.
But
I wanted it to not be a battle. I knew that.
So, I mean, there's other characters that we've like created for you by reference too.
Yeah.
Like Broth,
yeah.
And, like, and Rance Rizzuto and like all these
Rance
people
Rizzuto
that we...
is huge. Dong Farley.
and Flong Farley.
And Flong Farley, his cousin, his brother.
Mrs. Lumpy Butt.
Mrs. Lumpy Butt, yes.
Is not really a real person.
No, but the dwarf manager of the tannery who was attracted to Miss Lumpy Butt would be an example of someone completely improvised based on the fact that you guys had lumpy butts, or Eon had a lumpy butt and was walking in, and it was like, most people have been disturbed by this, so I'm just gonna have one person be into it.
Okay, so I'm gonna give you a short list of characters that I'm wondering, and all I need for you to do is answer whether they were pre-planned, like made specifically, with intention, and they're campaign oriented, and they, you built them in.
Yeah. Or
if they're just fucking made up.
Okay.
So for starters, old blind lady who sells silver apples in Daffield.
100% improvised.
Okay. Lord Farrowflame.
Intentional.
Weird ex cleric who lives in the woods. Cowardly ex-cleric who lives in the woods in Daffield.
Wiener?
Well, yeah, Wiener.
Wien.
I was going to call him Wiener, and I was like, I don't think that's his name.
Wien was created. Wien was created.
Wien was pre-planned. Okay. The guy who Plumspite. Arheap Plumspite.
In characterization, improvised. The idea of there being a rival perfumist planned.
Zarn, I think is his name. The dwarf
who blacksmith
outfitted us. Yep.
Yeah, completely improvised.
Okay.
Now has an elaborate backstory that no one has bought. Since no one has talked to him again, it is irrelevant, but he is a heroic man.
Gotcha. All right. So he was improvised at first and is now built in.
Yeah.
Donnell,
improvised. Just conceptually knew that having a a
criminal
Baker
contact
Street kid is like a good, easy thing to have.
Okay. Beverly.
Completely improvised.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't tell the difference.
Yeah.
You do a good job.
Well, it's also, I just don't do a great job on my planned ones so that the unplanned ones feel just as good.
You just lower the bar enough.
Yeah, exactly.
Or if you would like to do lightning round, you can as well.
Okay.
No
I already
pressure.
know Targo Tyrillian improvised.
Yeah, clearly.
Because we created him for you, basically.
Yes.
Targo.
Yeah,
Targo Tyrillian. The head of the guard in Stasso.
The dummy one? Yeah, he's improvised.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah, 100%.
Skit improvised.
Skit's also improvised. Every town guard in Stesso is improvised.
Cassie Forbrick.
Pre-planned.
Our boss, what's her name?
Pre-planned. Heavily, the most pre-planned character of all of them.
The guard at the harbor. The manager,
improvised. No, he's pre-planned. He was pre-planned, but then you guys talked to him
a lot more
too
than
much,
you expected.
and I was like, oh, okay, so I had to make up a bunch of shit.
What I love about that is anytime that happens, I feel like one of two things happens. Either if anytime players talk to a character that you just built to be like an exposition machine of like, here's things you need to know.
Yeah.
Now we are concluded with our interaction. And anytime they talk with him,
and they're like, wait, whoa, where are you going?
Yeah, like, whoa, I want to know about you. One of two things I feel like always happens. Either that person becomes suddenly way friendlier than they were up to that point.
Or they're way meaner.
Where it's always like, oh, thank you for asking. Like, you're my best friends. Or they're like, shut up, I don't like you. And then they sit there
away.
And just be like, I don't want to talk anymore.
Yep.
Or people who are I would love to talk to you forever. So that they
err on the side of that. Because I honestly feel like the first one, the friendly one, is the more effective way of pushing a party away.
I agree.
So I tend to err on the side of like, yeah, no one ever talks to me. And then everyone's like alarm bells go off and they're like, oh, this person's annoying. Yeah. And they try to leave.
Because otherwise, if they're like, leave me alone, everybody's like, they've got something they're hiding.
Yeah.
They must be important.
Yep. I've found that to be the case too. But I went I want to be your best friend route, and you guys just went with it. Sort of like we did with Quarrel.
Yeah.
Was that the strategy there too?
Yeah. With Quarrel?
Yeah.
No. Originally, my strategy with Quarrel was I'm not going to use this anymore, so I can say it. Originally, my plan was with Quarrel to have Quarrel befriend you guys because I wanted you guys to really like someone, and then I was going to have him brutally murdered by Obit Shipe so that to raise your guys' dander.
Right.
But then the timing of it just didn't work out. Like it felt like narratively it wouldn't have much impact.
Mm.
So then I was like, whatever, I'm just going to, like, he just wants to be their buddies.
We just have a friend now.
Yeah. You guys just have a friend, and you guys have
it's cool.
A shop. Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah. It feels fun. The other people can die.
Yeah.
And they will, almost assuredly. You guys have introduced the drug trade into a city that the underworld has previously forbidden drugs.
Yeah.
So there will be consequences, elaborate and extensive.
Yes, I'm ready.
Yeah.
Trell and Wince and Captain Nabundo are basically the only other people that I've pre-planned.
Oh, Captain Nabundo.
Yeah.
We can talk about him.
Oh, yeah, he died.
He's dead as hell.
You guys fucked him up.
It felt really good.
He was a badass.
Yeah. What were his stats?
What
was his template? Was he an NPC?
He was a warlock fighter.
Oh, okay. So he was classed, like player classed?
No.
Okay.
No. He was sort of like a half fusion of gladiator and archfey warlock.
Wow.
Yeah.
What was his?
So you guys beat the shit out of him.
Like if you were going to give him a CR, what was?
Probably somewhere between 6 and 7.
Great.
But I mean, you guys ganged up on him and just beat the living shit out of him.
Yeah, we did. It felt really good.
You guys fucked him up bad.
It felt really nice killing a hero.
He did put 2 of you down. He put one of you down.
He put me down
twice.
Multiple times.
He put you down, and he also put Garf down.
Yeah, that's right.
So this is for we've switched track now and are talking about the monster campaign. Our tertiary campaign, where they came face to face. The monster Suicide Squad came face to face with the oft mentioned Captain Nabundo, beloved hero of the Ichion Mercenary Company, and they just slammed him. And he was carrying a cool sword, and they took it.
Yeah, we did.
And then they rode on a dragon's back, and now they're assaulting, just full-scale assaulting a town.
Yeah.
And we'll see what happens.
Yeah. It's like riding a chopper into Nam.
Yeah.
And then just unleashing. I'm excited to see. Once we killed him, I was like, I wonder how long it will take for news of his death to percolate to the Palindo campaign.
Because it's going to be a problem.
Yeah, I hope so.
It's a big deal.
Yeah, that's why I was like, no, either way, no way we're not killing this guy. We have to kill him because I want to see how it affects the other game. I also
do you want to DM to DM thing?
I'll also say, just so everybody knows, we killed him, and then Krat, the lizard wizard I'm playing.
Wizards of Waverly Place.
Yeah. collected his remains and
that's right. He's
animated him as a zombie with the plan to send him into the town and make it look like he is directing us, so that not only is he dead, but even worse, everybody thinks he has turned traitor on the forces of good.
Yep.
Just to really take the piss out of him.
And I don't know what's going to happen. We'll see what happens.
Anyway, DM to DM.
Oh, DM to DM. He is another one of the rival warlocks that Shava is looking for.
Well,
so I was going to have him appear in the Palindo campaign, but he dead. So now I have to figure out what that means.
Yeah. Who's the second in command?
I mean, I think What I'm trying to figure out is whether Shava's patron is going to be like, dead's dead.
Yeah.
I'm going to give her a boon.
Yeah, I don't quite remember what the thrust of the warlock hunt is, other than Shava has to kill a bunch of warlocks, basically.
Yeah. She obtained a poem with some vague clues and references to 6 warlocks who were bound to individual like archfey in this sort of like mass pact, and that Cassie Forbrick was one of those people. And upon killing Cassie Forbrick, you guys met Shava's patron briefly, who conferred a boon on her for doing good work, Shava, and then basically directed her that in time it would fall to her to eliminate the other ones who are left.
Right.
But one of them's a zombie now, so I think job well done anyway. We'll see. I don't know. I'll have to think about it.
Yeah. The other reason the other thing I liked about making him a zombie is now he can't be brought back to life.
Yeah, once he dies again, he's done forever.
Yeah. Which I also feels real nice as an evil character.
Yeah.
You're just desecrating the
denying
body.
him like a revivify or something.
Yeah, which that's interesting. Oh, I will say it's that reminds me of with the sharing campaign with these 2 dungeon crawls that I am making it is going to end up being there is I'm curious to see how it goes towards the end of the Wave Echo Cave dungeon crawl thing. There will be some things that happen that I think will be really important to one of the characters involved, is my hope.
In this, the one we're running?
Yeah.
As a result of this dungeon?
Yeah. I think,
Who is it?
I'm not going to tell you.
Then it's me.
I'm not going to tell you.
Then it's Mark.
I'm not going to tell you.
It might be Eon.
It might be all 3.
It's got to be one of the core 3 people.
Yeah. It would be weird if it was Tim's character who just got introduced today.
Yeah, and that he might not even be playing long term.
Yeah, especially since he was like, I'm looking for my sister as his main character motivation, which was very cool. But I had established that his sister was talking to him, like her mouth and voice was coming from the gibbering mouther. So then I was like, he didn't realize that meant his sister had been eaten, and he thinks his sister is still lost.
He's got 3 other sisters, you know.
He does have 3 other sisters.
He's one of those.
Yeah, that's
what
a fair
were their
point.
names?
There was
Miranda. No, that's not
Kayla
right.
or something.
Michelle was one of them.
And they had very normal
Beth.
Yeah, I think Beth and Emily.
Yeah, Beth, Michelle, and Emily sound right.
Yeah, and then
Clowna.
Yeah, Clowna or something.
And then his name is Sneevis. So his parents, I think, they started with like kind of real normal baby book names.
Yeah.
And then they got bored and just started making shit up.
I like to think of it, they found their roots as like rat people as they went on. And then we're like, you know what? Like, we don't need to do what's like culturally appropriate. We're going to go back to our roots and name our kids something real to us.
I like that.
Because the head rat person's name is Skivwit. So
I gotta meet Skivwit.
Skivwit, I don't know anything about him, but I think he's a cool dude.
All right.
Because basically, like, here is the structure of what I know about NPC, or like how I construct my NPCs. I know Skivwit exists. I know he is old. I know he's a master herbalist. And I know he's generally a good dude. And that's the sum of it. And that he lives in the sewers. So the likelihood that he's a Splinter-esque character like approaches certainty. But
I gotta meet Splinter. Yeah. His name even sounds like Splinter.
I know. I really had to fight it so that his name wasn't Splinter or like Slinter or
like
something.
Sliver.
Yeah, Sliver.
That's sort of how I built Rector Tomlin, the mayor in town of Stesso, who I was like, I know he's a religious man. I know he's doing his best and he feels a moral obligation to like help people in general. And I know that also he's a little bit naive. Like that's about all I got.
Which is all you need.
Yeah. And then when the party starts talking to them is when you really start to figure out what their deal is.
Yeah. Based on like what the party likes.
Yeah. Because I feel like pre-planning too much is a trap for a DM because you end up, and in general,
right?
But especially with NPCs, because I feel like you fall into a trap of like, this thing is very important, but they're not asking about it or like probing in that direction,
right?
So I have to like find a way to force it. You know what I mean? And then it doesn't feel right or natural or powerful. So just like laying baselines down and then acting them out the way that it just makes sense based on what, the 4 things you know about them are, tends to feel better and be more natural. And then if the party has questions or like goes down a line of dialogue or whatever that allows for you to reveal something cool or like make something up on the spot that's interesting, you can just do that they're like, well, have you heard anything about, like what this literally happened with the drug dealer.
Yeah,
where you guys were like, well, if you hear any rumors about where this werewolf is hanging out, let me know. And I was like, oh, this is not at all what I was expecting from this character. But yeah, here, I'll feed you. Like, I heard about this entrance to an old dungeon. Here you go. And
was that planned at all?
No. So I just made this person up for fun to see if I could sell some drugs to the party and get you guys on drugs.
No, I mean, was the dungeon in existence, or like a planned thing?
I had been designing a dungeon. I mean, I'm sitting on like 2 or 3 just exploratory places at pretty much all times, because you never know when people are going to just go do stuff.
Right.
But I had been intending to throw a dungeon at you guys at some point that made sense. And then I was like, well, here it is. So I just made, it just made sense.
Right.
And I was like, sure, I'll just make up. They're asking for it. So if they're asking for it, then you just find a way to give it to them. But if the weird thing is when you pre-plan that it's going to happen this way, and then they're players, so they don't they don't do it exactly the way that you thought they would, and then you have to like jam it down there or something, and it doesn't really work or make sense, and then they don't want to.
Right.
Is like usually what happens.
That's interesting, because that relates also to like dungeon building, which is like, I feel like the best way to do it is, and the reason why I like the ecology approach to dungeon building is if you make like this sewer, all of it just works on its own, and like this sewer map has like multiple ways to get to where you guys are trying to go.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't care where you guys go, because I know eventually you'll end up there one way or the other. And that just makes it really a lot easier to run, because it's like, whatever, like I don't need to steer you guys anywhere. Although I was thinking about this when you were talking about it in terms of like sort of like that exposition thing with NPCs or stuff that are like trying to get people to certain things.
Mm-hmm.
With you guys, I think because you're so loose, I have been doing something that I haven't done as a DM before, which is just being like directly just telling you guys things almost out of character, of being like, you would probably want to do like a perception check to figure things out, like being more helpful than I have previously, just in terms of like, and it's interesting because at times it feels weird to me, and at times it feels like, I mean, because none of us care about like there's an example of like the secret doors thing there, and just being like, I mean, you're gonna have to like do an investigation check if you want to find a secret door, and just kind of making it clear of like, there's probably a secret door there, but you'll have to like look for it. It feels interesting because nobody is like a super aggressive gamer, so they don't really care if nobody cares if they find the secret door or not.
Right.
So it feels interesting just laying out the stakes of stuff a little bit more aggressively, because everybody enjoys as much playing not finding the secret door as they do playing it. So rather than like keeping its existence to myself all the time, sometimes it feels fun to be like, yeah, like you as a player know that there might be something there, and now, but before you didn't, and now you do, and now we'll play the game of, does your character figure it out?
Right.
I guess in other words, of like helping make players more genre savvy when they aren't.
Characters especially that are not fit for what they're doing.
Or like Jeff, who's playing with us, is a blast to play with, but doesn't have the mechanics of D&D as like in his bones. Like, it's not like he doesn't enter a room and immediately like start like pressing the door or the walls for latches and stuff. So it's fun to be like, you could press the walls for latches if you wanted to look for a secret.
And
rooms.
I think that is I know there are probably people listening who are like, well, then why even have secrets, or like why, and that's bold for me to say, because to say that I know that there are people listening, period, is kind of like a bold. But anyway, the point being that where I would disagree with my invented dissenters would be listeners in general, yes, and dissenters among that extremely narrow, invisible group. Is that I would say I think something DMs don't do enough is factor in that your characters are seeing the world. The characters in the game are seeing the world. They're seeing everything.
Right.
They have skills that we do not have. We do not possess. And so your players have two disadvantages that you have to compensate for as a DM.
Right.
The first disadvantage is their understanding of the world is absolutely 100% dependent on your ability to communicate accurately and without any possibility of miscommunication or misunderstanding what the characters are seeing and interacting with. And then secondly, that your players might not have the skills that the characters in game would have. So, it's funny and fun to read stories about my characters tried for an hour to push on a door before they realized that some doors are sliding doors, so they slid the door. They're like, oh, it's sliding. But there's no conceivable way that a group of adventurers who've been doing this for a long time and are adults wouldn't be like, hey, this thing has no hinges and there's there's no doorknob. It's a fucking thing that pulls to the side. There's no conceivable way that the characters would fall for that. You're relying on planting bad imagination or misleading information in your character's
head. You're metagaming.
Right. So I think and I think that's metagaming. That's metagaming in a nutshell. So I would argue that what you're doing, where you would be like, hey, heads up, your character is a savvy dungeon delvery type or a clever bard who is a skill monkey. Yeah. Your character might think to look for this here. Right. I think that's way less metagamey. Or to be like, hey, what's your passive perception? Cool. You notice this thing that is supposed to be hidden. Right? Yeah. I think that's a way more savvy and less metagamey move than trying to rope the players, the humans at the table, into making the correct series of moves to find your hidden stuff.
Yeah, there was a moment of that today where Eon, in a moment, again having her first sort of moral awakening, wanted to cast suggestion to convince somebody to go with her to do it, and she could only cast on one person, and so she picked Soaking Paw, and that was a moment where I was like, cool, you though that Soaking Paw has is pretty perceptive and pretty had to provide metagame context to her solely for the reasoning of I can tell you're making this choice and think everything is relatively equal, but he's absolutely going to make his save barring any catastrophe. So you're doing this as a Hail Mary on someone that it won't work on. Right. As opposed to someone who it might work on. So being like, hey, just
this is something your character would know.
Yeah, you would be aware that he's he's a monk, and kind of everything that he does is based around his ability to take in information and filter
attune
out
to the world.
Yeah. Yeah. So as a result, she had targeted Mark McGrath.
And it worked.
Which was more fun for everybody, because also, as we established today, Soaking Pod just wants a rigid hierarchy to follow. Yeah. He just wants someone to tell him what to do and yell at him if he's not doing it right.
Yeah. Yeah. He likes that.
Yeah, he does. And he's looking rough, too.
You know what? I'm real sad about it. I'm going to find a potion of hair growth.
Yeah,
and I'm going to get my fur back.
Ripped. All of the fur has been ripped out of his tail by what bit him?
Something bit me on the tail, and I yanked free. I think it was one of those dogs.
That's right. In the fight, yeah.
Those blink dogs or whatever they were?
Death
dogs.
So you got your tail ripped out. You had a carrion crawler
just nipping at my head.
Yeah, just tufts of fur out. So you look like a balding cat.
I look like a cat. I look like a chemo cat.
Yeah.
And I want my hair back.
Yeah.
And I'm going to find a way, because that's why I'm wearing the hat right now, to cover it up.
Oh, I just thought it was because you wanted to be a classy top hat cat.
No, what? Why would Soak wear it? No, I'm covering up the fact that I have chunks of hair missing from my head.
You were, though, legitimately, it seemed like that Soak was legitimately excited about the cargo pants.
The cargo pants are a huge win.
Yeah.
Because they're infinite pockets.
Yeah, seemingly.
So
many pockets.
This is great because now I can put more stuff in my pocket and less in my saggy bag of eggs.
Yeah, with a gibbering mouther heart in the center of it,
which I'm going to revive somehow.
I can't wait to see.
Yeah, but so I think, and that ties into our discussion of like trap design and stuff too. Is it's trap the other problem I think with trap design, it falls into that category of like your characters, unless your characters are dumb and reasonably in a dungeon for the first time, you don't get into the adventuring profession without at least an awareness of like that there are environmental hazards involved, or there are places might have traps or like stuff like hidden, or you know what I mean? So like the idea that the characters wouldn't be aware enough to look, unless it's within character, like it's built in your character that they're like gullible or not very smart, or they're like absent-minded professor style,
right?
Then it doesn't make sense at all for your fighter to not like be hyper aware at all times as they go through this dark cave where they don't know what's inside of it.
Yeah. So, or if they're like, because it's like, there's no way Soak is not walking quietly.
Right.
Even regardless of anything else, unless a drug addict is like yelling, screaming at him.
Right. Exactly.
And because he's antagonizing her.
That's always bothered me about like traps and stuff too. Because I think a lot of traps only work because of the like theater of the mind, or like even when you run something with like a clear map like on the board or anything, even if it's got like stuff on it, or like you have set pieces and stuff like that, the characters' eyes are not the same as our eyes.
Right.
So yeah, when you're like, when I'm a DM and I'm like, you enter a large room, it's covered in cobwebs and there's a small breeze coming through a crack in the wall. It seems like a lot of the mason work here has sort of like collapsed over the ages. This room has not been well kept.
I inspect the spider webs.
Right. Yeah, that's not going to happen. And then I'm like, there's a door at the far end of the room. You're like, great. Is there anything in the room? And I go, there's some sconces hanging, like jutting out of the wall, iron sconces.
I pull every sconce.
Yeah, that's not going to happen, right? Like, I mean, yeah, it is. But yeah, you touch all the sconces, nothing happens. And there's a door at the far end of the room and a small statue at the side of the door. And, probably your players are like, I'm going to pull every sconce. Or they're like, I'm going to touch the statue, or I'm going to open the door. Because those are the things you put in their brains to see.
Right.
So I'm like, great. As you take your first step, the floor breaks out from under you. Like, that's hard for me because you didn't say... Yeah. There's a weird fine line between like giving away that the trap is there every time, and like the characters being like, hey, this fucking one square of the floor looks different than the other squares. You know what I mean? So there's like a balance there that's really hard.
Yeah, what I've encountered before that I think is like a useful thing to do is to call for random perception checks at random times, and just be like, okay, and try to get people in the habit of doing it. But I also don't like random people constantly calling out perception checks, because that also feels lazy to me on the player's part, where it's like, you're not actually like looking around. Like, it's one thing to be like, I do a perception check in the room. It's like, cool, this is not fun for anybody. You either found it or you didn't. Instead, if they're like, I'm going to check around the floor, then it's like, even that I would rather than a perception check. And then I would just tell them what it is.
Yeah, I wouldn't even call for a roll there. Yeah, if they're like specifically looking for something, I'd just give it to them.
Yeah, because that's way more fun.
Yeah, you were smart enough to like anticipate this thing.
Yeah.
And it's there. So why wouldn't I just give it to you?
Yeah, like today, even like Tim was like, I'm going to use my sense of smell just to see if there's anything living in this room. And it was like, that's great. Of course, I'm going to give that to you, because that is more directed than just trying to let a role take place of independent thought or agency, which is always fun.
Yeah. And I think that's why I do, like with the iron door with the water stuff and like the ledge going around the edge of this bottomless pit. I think that's why I try to present, if I do have traps or like hazards or whatever, I try to present them in a way that they are apparently dangerous, or like apparently unknown to some degree, or apparent, like whatever it is about them is enough to make everybody at the table go, well, I could easily see this going badly.
Yeah.
Because then it's less of a game of like did you think to call for a roll here? And more of a game of like, cool, let's anticipate whatever disaster might happen if we try to do this thing and play a game. Like we're playing around it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you actually did that when we were originally going to tie Grundor to the door. You were like, okay. And that was like, cool. Okay, yeah, you're right. Let's check the door first.
Yeah.
And see if like how rusty its hinges are.
Yeah, because and that's a communication thing too, right?
Yeah.
That's why I did that, because I was like, all right, I didn't adequately explain that this thing is on its last legs.
Right.
They're not understanding that they're doing the equivalent of like trying to pick up a soda can that has been dropped on the ground and is now bulging out in all directions, and then popping the top.
And trying not to get wet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'm like, okay, I didn't adequately... There's a breakdown in communication here about what they're looking at.
Right.
So I have to clarify. That's my job. It's my failure as a DM if my miscommunication results in a party member getting swept away.
Right.
So I clarified it.
Yeah.
And as a result, you guys were like, great, let's use the environment to our advantage and figure out how to open this thing from a distance and like avoid wait for the thing to drain. And like, so you got to outsmart the environmental hazard in character, which is, I think, way more interesting than like, well, you didn't perception check, so you're in a hole. And like, that's like, we talked about a lot about, I can't remember if it was last episode or the one before, about taxing party resources,
right,
and using encounters and like traps and stuff as a way to do that. And I think it's important to do those things, but I also think it's important for your party to be able to, as a reward, to be able to keep their resources if they play smartly, or they play collaboratively, or whatever the situation might call for.
Right.
Like, I don't know. I don't,
to avoid those same hazards if they play it correctly.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, if we're just gonna try to like do the wall scoot around the edge with no pre-planning and like not really look where we're going, and we're gonna put the least perceptive member of the party up front, then okay, yeah, she's gonna fall into a hole. Like, but you know, if we tie ropes to each other and we can make the strength check and pull her up, then we're good.
Yeah, and both are. That's the other thing. It's equally fun having an encounter versus like successfully avoiding having an encounter. Like, as long as you see that the encounter is a possibility, it's as fun to slip and not fall into the hole as it is to have to like pull someone up from the hole after they like almost died.
Yeah.
Both are cool.
Because it's a thing about tension, right?
Yeah.
Where you present it and it's like, okay, we can see 5 different ways that this could go wrong. And that builds tension. So when the party is able to completely circumvent that situation and take no damage and not have to waste any spell slots and not, whatever, there's a rewarding, I hope, there's a rewarding feeling of like, we beat that thing.
Yeah, right.
Like we were presented with a problem, and it doesn't have to be monsters every time.
Right.
We were presented with a problem and we beat that problem. So,
and it's nice also because like I think, tension is its own resource. And if you make every encounter and situation always be the like
save or die,
or like, this is important, then it's like, well, the fourth, like, then your game just gets shorter and is like less interesting, versus like that thing with Shava almost falling in. It was cool. It didn't feel like it didn't take a lot of time to resolve, and it didn't feel like it needed to, which was nice, because then it's just interesting as opposed to important.
Right.
And I think that's the hardest thing as a DM to do, is remembering that and doing that, which is putting in a lot of interesting things that happen that aren't important things that happen, or aren't like, not, they can be important, but they aren't like, will they or won't they?
Right.
They're more of like, what's going to happen? Something cool. It doesn't affect, we don't need to stop and focus on this. We can keep going and be able to do that, so that you get like those in. Because another resource, if you're talking about taxing party resources, another one of their resources is their interest.
Yep.
And you got to make sure not to tax that resource too quick.
Yeah, that's the one you want to keep at max all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a final question.
Yeah.
And it is, I've remembered it now. I was stalling because I had forgotten what it was.
Yeah, it was good stall.
Was it? I just kind of stopped talking and then veered off into stall words.
Yeah. I didn't say it was a great stall, but I think it was a good one.
It worked.
Yeah. So
here's my question.
Yeah.
Here's my question. My question to you is this: what do you do when you have put something of interest or like something powerful or like important that you know, for example, that the party would be interested in, say, or even not even that big a deal, but like you've built something interesting or fun.
You made a cool thing.
Or powerful. You made a cool thing, or you hit a thing that you know they're looking for, that they want, in a place, and the party just walks right by it, or
did that happen?
Walks in it and then walks away from it. Just in general, like what do you do when you plot?
Yeah, no way that happened in our game.
Huh?
No way that happened in Stesso.
This is a general question.
Like in the underground area, or like in the...
Here's a hypothetical example.
Yeah, okay.
In the dungeon that I ran last week, the first part of our underground dungeon, the party went into a series of caverns.
Yep.
And they saw 3 tunnels and a black ooze in front of them, or a black pudding. And they were like, pass. And they turned around and walked out. Let's say, this is now,
hypothetical.
Just to back up this question. Hypothetically, if you had planted something in that area, or like put like an interesting potential future like arch or something in it, I mean, what do you do? Like what's your response as a DM?
Initially,
because I'm sure we've done that to you 100 times.
Oh yeah, I mean that's your entire game has been that. Initially, it depends. Like our game that the game I am DMing is predicated on that at this point. So like at this point, I just throw out. I don't spend a lot of time thinking them through, and just throw them out as hooks, and just like let them like sink below the surface and then wash off. Like because like I said, that blacksmith, he's got a huge backstory. Or like Kneebridge, he was arrested and has now been proclaimed a terrorist and is going to be sent. There's a lot going on with that guy as well. In a way that was like, I like just kind of like pooped out a backstory for it and was like, that'd be fun. But I don't care
with you and poop, man.
I mean, you know what? I plopped out.
Still sounds poopy.
I splorched out.
It's just getting back. We're going backwards.
Yeah.
We're sliding backwards.
See, now who's doing it? Yeah. So I do that. But if it's like an object or something, usually I just disabuse myself of what I thought was going on with it. So like for that example, if it's like there's 3 tunnels and we just didn't go down them, I would probably do one of 2 things. I would either just scrap the location, keep the same stuff, and have it show up in the city, or I would have in the city somebody like have a map that points to it, and it says something like an old map that kind of indicates it, or I would just have like secret tunnels, like have them stumble upon a tunnel that takes us to the same thing but circumvents the ooze or the black pudding. So basically I would just keep it, and then just like keep presenting options for people to get to the same thing, especially if it's location based. Otherwise, a thing I always want to do but don't have the mental wherewithal to like really put myself together on it is the idea, if it's like an object, of the idea of like, well, if you guys don't find it, somebody else does.
That's what I would do.
Yeah. But then I have to like run a second group of people in my head and stuff. And especially with our campaign, I already have enough dealing with the group of people I'm actually running that like running a second band of adventurers.
Oh, I would do so, because I think my solutions are pretty much the same.
Yeah.
Where I'd be like, okay, well, I've already designed this like dungeon map, so I just lift that and like use it later.
Yeah, right.
Because all the stuff in it is still
valid,
good, I hope. I mean, I don't know if it's good to begin with, so I guess still good is not really. But the hope is that I've done it right.
Right.
And I would just use it somewhere else, because it seems like a waste to throw that all away, and the party wouldn't know the difference or probably care. But then item-wise, I think I would change all of the stuff in that dungeon area now, and probably update the monsters or like whatever, depending on where this map now exists in the world. But I would definitely have some sleazy, easily hateable motherfucker come into town and be like, someone made an easy entryway down into the well, and I went down there and found all of these goodies. And it's like just all kinds of fun shit
that would be very fun.
Party would have actually found. Just because, I don't know, that seems like, it seems like a fun way to create a very hateable enemy for the group.
It's true.
Like I don't think there's anything that I would hate more as a character or a player than to be like, are you telling me I was 5 feet away from this wand, and then after I cleared out everything, some other pot-bellied freak with like, a gambling problem and a bad back came down here and like stole with his stupid hairy knuckles. He stole all of the stuff that I basically left down there for him. I would hate that guy.
Yeah.
I put people on my death list for less.
You have.
So I think that'd be a fun way, because I think something your party is lacking is a long-term bad guy sense.
Yeah, I agree.
Like you have your werewolf that you're hunting, but I don't think that doesn't feel like villainy to me.
Yeah.
It just feels like a loose end that you guys are trying to tie up.
Yeah, that feels like what it is to me too.
So I'd love for an easy way to introduce somebody that you guys actively hated all the time.
Yeah. It's funny because similar to that, I had the thought originally of having this pyromancer that you guys fought kind of be the end big bad of the Way of Echo cave portion of the dungeon.
Mm-hmm.
Then I was like, nah, I don't want to, because I don't want to wrap him up that easily. And I also don't want him to ever be the central bad guy. I think it's more fun to have him periodically just show up
and fuck stuff up and
ruin your guys' day and then try to get away, but not ever purposely coming after you guys, just like paths crossing in this constant stream of him just like off on his own trajectory, and you guys always being like, we could either stop everything we're doing and try to track this guy down, or just like let it go.
Yeah, it's
just making that math.
It's the difference between like having the Joker and having like a Ra's al Ghul who like shows up every once in a while, and he like really screws things up, but he just kind of gets away, and it's like, damn it, stupid Ra's al Ghul. But the real focus is over here.
Yeah, it's like he's always like a level 5 villain, but when you're dealing with a level 6. So you're like, well, we got to deal with the bigger threat.
Yeah.
But over the course of it, it's like, well, he's always been and continues to be a threat. So he probably ends up doing more damage cumulatively. He's just never a world threatener.
Right. Yeah. It's the difference between like, oh, I stumbled over this guy and he's like doing bad stuff. And like this person is actively fucking up my whole life.
Right.
So I think I need one of those. I need an anti-party.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens.
Good luck. What are you going to call him? I mean, we don't even call ourselves
anti-party.
Yeah.
I think that's probably what I'll call him.
That's good. Yeah. Like
simple, easy.
Is it a woman and her name is like anti-party? Like she's an ant? Like auntie?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I'm working on it. I'm thinking about a pot-bellied, bad-backed, hairy-knuckled man who just like you know what I think would actually be a great motivator for your party is a guy who keeps stealing acclaim for all of the stuff that you actually do.
Can I throw out a freebie for you?
Yeah.
The head of the city watch that we got demoted.
Yeah.
If he just goes like quits
like, loses
and then
it and
decides to become an adventurer.
Yeah. Like, and it's his soul. Like he like knows you were behind it, and like he's basically like a better version of Electro in Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Yeah, wow, what a reference.
Yeah, that movie was so bad.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, love Jamie Foxx. Holy shit. What a terrible, terrible character that was.
Yeah. Real
I don't even know if it's his fault. It just was written so badly.
Terrible.
People on the Spider-Man subreddit, total tangent now. People on the Spider-Man subreddit defend those movies. And
of course.
I cannot understand.
Yeah, they're bad.
I love Spidey, and I got to tell you, those movies were embarrassing for me.
Yeah.
As a person who likes Spider-Man, that those movies were made is an embarrassment.
Yeah, it was just weird.
Like the Sam Raimi ones are like hokey and
but they're fun.
Stupid, but
the second one is so good.
The second one is good, but they like overall they're like kind of hokey and dumb. My only complaint about the second one is that if you're like an old man scientist, having metal arms on your back doesn't mean that if Spider-Man punches you in the face that you should live.
Right.
Like if Spider-Man punches you in the face and you've never been in a fight in your life, and second of all,
I think you're underplaying the virility of Alfred Molina.
Maybe he's like a Golden Gloves.
Yeah, I think
champion.
He looks like a tough dude to me.
I know, but I'm just saying, like.
Also, Spider-Man, I feel like
he pulls his punches, but I think he's fought enough guys at this point that he could punch one guy.
Yeah, probably.
That's all I have to say about that.
That's
because there's parts in the movie where he's clearly punching Alfred Molina.
Yeah.
Like if it was like a thing where they designed the fights choreography so that he just can't ever get through the arms.
Yeah.
That would be fine. But
and
he
cool.
like punches the sunglasses off of him.
Yeah.
That's death. That's brain death. Instant brain death.
Yeah, that is like a pretty, at the very least, a pretty aggressive concussion.
Next episode, we're going to present to you our stat sheets for Spider-Man.
And Doc Ock.
And we'll figure out how to make them in 5e.
Yeah, that would be fun.
That's a challenge that we're giving ourselves. And a challenge to you out there.
Yeah.
Submit your multi-class, we'll say a level 12 cap.
Level 12, damn.
So pick your multi-classes, because I don't want to do like cheap, like...
Yeah, you're right.
Level 20 perfect multi-class.
I was thinking like level 3.
Oh. Because I think when people hear that,
fun.
they're like, well, Spider-Man's level 20, and he's got this much in Monk because he needs this ability and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Let's make it real. 12.
12, yeah.
12, no magic items.
No.
Done. That's it.
Great.
That's the DM challenge of the week.
Make your Spider-Man or Doc Ock.
Or Doc Ock.
Or both of you.
Which one are you going to do?
Doc Ock for sure.
All right, I'll do Spidey.
Great.